Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. For those of you who are new, welcome. I am S. Maxine Fisher, an author, fiber artist, and lesbian mom of one. I am so excited today to talk about my first ever craft market. I'm actually filming most of this from after the fact, but I will show you some footage from the market. And I want to talk about some important takeaways that I learned during my first crochet craft market, as well as how much money I made, some experiences I had along the way, and some things that might really surprise you about the crochet market business. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey everyone, this is S. Maxine Fisher of True Colors Studios, and I am on my way to my first ever craft market. I've been wanting to do a craft fair for so long, and finally within the last year I got my crochet business started and really built up enough inventory to where I feel confident of going out and selling in public. So that is where we're going to go, and I'm going to take you along for the ride, show you my setup once I get myself set up. I apologize for the shaky camera angle because I don't have good equipment here in the car and I'm just popping in to say hey. So without further ado, let's get on the road. I had no idea until I got here how much inventory I really had. The bulk of it is actually hidden behind the table, and I just put out a few items of everything and tried to arrange things in a way that was as visually least cluttered as it could be while still displaying everything that I had made. I tried to bring a little something for everyone. I have minis like the little cheeky turtles, mushy boys, octos, and then I have jumbo things like that mushroom guy. I brought lots of dragons, and that strawberry dragon really shone out. I also had some snugglers, some squids, things kind of in the $40 to $45 range. Because I didn't have a lot of space, I did try to build my display upward with small shelves as well as the large cube storage shelves, and I think that helped people to be able to see some of my items. But I did notice that things at the top of the display tended to get ignored. They let us bring our own racks so we could have a little bit more than a 6-foot table. So the market I attended was a craft fair at the Center for Balanced Living in Townsend, Delaware. I picked this market specifically for my first one for a variety of reasons. One was that I actually found out about it by seeing it publicized on my Facebook feed. I felt like the event was well promoted. I mean, the fact that I saw it come across my feed, even though I had no previous association with the center, showed that they were actively promoting, doing ads, and trying to get people in who would be interested in vending or purchasing at that event. I also noticed the rainbow on the company's logo, and having done a small amount of research, I felt that they would be an LGBT-friendly enough venue for me to feel comfortable vending and maybe even finding my target customer there. One thing I didn't realize until I started trying to hype this market myself was that this venue was really in the middle of nowhere. I had a family member planning to come and support us, and even he couldn't find the address until I sent him a pin on Google Maps. So I started getting a little nervous beforehand. And the other factor was the weather. So it is now the beginning of May. This was scheduled to be an outdoor event, and the vendors just had tables out in the middle of a grass lawn. And I actually researched beforehand and saw that that was their setup. They did have a rain date. So when we saw there was rain in the forecast, I got a call from the venue a few days beforehand to discuss postponing the event till next weekend. And that was part of the plan to begin with. And I said, absolutely. I have, hundreds of dollars worth of inventory, probably more, invested, and I can't afford for it to just be all destroyed by the rain. It was probably a little too late to get additional people to see the promotion. And we were also further into late spring where it gets hotter. So a little bit more on that later. I basically went into this day with realistic expectations. I liked that it was likely not going to be super busy, because then I could take my time setting up and really just get the hang of using my point of sale and checking people out and interacting with customers. So I didn't want to shortchange somebody or lose track of inventory or, God forbid, have something get lost or somebody walk off without a payment going through. So that's why I chose this event, because I knew it was going to be less foot traffic and I would be able to learn the ropes. I started setting up my booth at 9 o'clock, and it took half an hour to just lug all my stuff out to the table. Next time, having a second person would be really essential. About 10:30, I started panicking. So even though I said I did a mock setup at home, I had a lot of decisions to make on site as to where I'm actually going to put things. Um, it wasn't windy, but it was breezy, and I felt like I spent half my setup time just chasing stuff around that kept falling on the ground or off the shelves or wanted to tip over. I really had to improvise and move things around so it wouldn't keep getting caught by the wind. At 10:30, I was still trying to label everything when this group of one of the other vendors' kids came over and started asking to buy stuff and asking me about my prices. So I tried to tell them kind of nicely that I'm about to put out the price tags, but I think I should have just said clearly, can you please come back at 11 when we're ready to sell, because right now I'm setting up. Because they, they're kids. They were like 10 and 12 years old, and they kind of kept circling around while I was trying to get myself together and asking questions. And that definitely added to the chaos of setting up. So if you're a vendor watching this and you have children, please make a note to make sure that they don't attempt to buy things from other vendors until after the sale opens, because that's really, especially for newer vendors, it can be a big deal, just getting yourself together. Number one, selling. So my first goal with this market was to gain experience in selling. I definitely met that goal. To prepare for this show, I did a cash box with ones, fives, and rolls of coin, just in case somebody had cash and needed change. I also had Staples print and laminate a payment sign with QR codes for Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. That was super helpful. My first two customers were actually other vendors at the show, and before I was able to check them out and try to figure out Square, they just scanned the code and Venmo'd me the price marked on their items tag. So I didn't have to do anything except for verify that the payment went through. If you're considering whether or not to accept other methods of payment, I would say definitely go for it. It's front-end work where you have to set up your QR codes, but do it because it's then less work for you in the moment when you're at your show. Today is the day after market. Once we got started, I definitely did not take any more video. I didn't even work on the work in progress I had brought because I was just trying to focus on selling and talking to customers and other vendors. So I definitely didn't have time to sit there and crochet. I also didn't take video once the market was over because we were all hot and tired and ready to go home. So I'm here today, somewhat hydrated and with my coffee and definitely sunburned, but ready to break down for you how my first market day went. I'll go over what it was like vending for the first time, what I learned, some of the highlights of the day, and then how much I made. Hopefully you can get some takeaways for yourself if you're planning to sell in person in the near future. I did have people who wanted to pay with a credit card. I used the Square app, which allows you to tap to pay if you have a chip card, or even use Apple Pay or Android Pay. I was a little flustered trying to find the keypad or add items from my item library to the sale ticket, and that definitely set me back. I also realized that some of my last minute makes didn't make it into my item library, or that my prices didn't match what was on the tag. So definitely either have a physical list in front of you of your final prices that you've updated manually, or make sure your POS app is completely correct before you start checking people out. I ended up keying these items as a custom amount because you can literally go in there and tap in on your keypad $20, hit charge, and then go to the cash or credit card screen. The biggest thing I learned while using Square is pay attention. When you make a credit card sale, make sure you wait for the authorization screen to clear, because then it will take you to this row of buttons where you select a tip or no tip. At least that's how my point of sale was set up. By the time I got to that screen, 100% of my customers were on the other side of the market. So that was a little nerve-wracking. Of course, when that came up, I hit no tip because I'm not in the business of ripping people off, especially when they've walked away from me. But it almost came back to bite me later on, as I will explain. A couple people did pay in cash. I still checked them out using Square because it has an option to record cash tendered, and that way I had a paper trail for my sales. I ended up not needing the cash box because everyone who paid me in cash were either other vendors and they had exact change. Everyone who paid me in cash were other vendors and they brought exact change. But I will still keep the small bills on hand because if I do have a busier market later, I know there are going to be people who want to buy from me and all they bought is a 20. So I will definitely keep the option open to be breaking larger bills. So let's talk about what people bought and what was most popular. So for the most part, people really gravitated toward the cute items and the novelties that were on my table. Um, I didn't sell any of the mug cozies or other utility items. I didn't sell any purses or handbags, although most of my purses are Pride themed. So it comes back to some of my target customer base not being at that event. Um, what people gravitated toward were the cute items and novelties. One all-time favorite was the cheeky turtles. Even though I only sold one of these, I had a lot of people looking through them and talking to me and giggling to themselves when they discovered that the shell opens to a little turtle butt. So people definitely enjoyed things that they could touch, that were interactive. They were all squishing the little stress balls and stress toys and all the other little minis. And I think that that really helped get people to stand at my table and engage in conversation, and eventually buy something that they wanted to get. I also sold a handful of my emotional support pickles, chill pills, and positive potatoes. In retrospect, I wish I had made a few more of these and brought maybe some regular, just solid color chill pills instead of the Pride themed ones, which I really had a lot of. I tried to literally do every Pride flag I can think of, but I only had one that had just a red and white pill. I do expect these will sell better at future markets because they were pretty popular. And I definitely think the Pride ones will sell because I will be going to Pride Festival events in June and July. I did not have any interest in the other Pride items where you can like choose your own snail body and add a shell with your Pride flag. By far, what people really liked and gravitated toward were some of my showstopper items that I had brought. Showstoppers are your larger plushies, the kind of the more intricate ones that are really attractive and appealing, and those kind of help draw people in and see what kind of work you're capable of. So I had a lavender dragon with rainbow wings and a mint chocolate chip dragon. Both of these were from the Winnie the Dragon pattern by Red Mills Crochet. I had a strawberry dragon from the Fourth Wing Dragon pattern Tatum the Dragon by Crochet by Jenna, a small Greta the Goldfish, also by Crochet by Jenna, and a jumbo Greta the Goldfish in purple sprinkles colors. I also had a massive extra large Anchor the Octopus by Humble Child with rainbow tentacles, and that one really got a lot of comment. I feel like out of all of these, the octopus got the most attention. He was absolutely massive. And I love the contrast with the navy Parfait XL body against the hand-painted glitter eyes and the rainbow big twist plush yarn. It's just a really, really beautiful piece. It's huge. It's one of those that you can just kind of carry around or display, and it really gets a lot of attention because of its size and coloring. Next time I have the space, I think that I will put the goldfish up front and center because they are absolutely beautiful. And I think they will sell to the right person, but nobody really noticed them because they were on a bottom shelf under my fuss-free pet goldfish. So people who went to my table really commented on the dragons, especially the younger girls. Even though they were priced really high, it didn't deter people. For crocheters who don't do dragons, so they can be a lot of sewing, and that drives the price up immensely because you have all these little parts. I would say like 50% of my work time for these pieces was just making little accessories like the horns and the whiskers and the eyebrows and the wings and the fluff on the wings and the little fluff all the way down the back. That is a pain in the you know what to crochet all that into your piece, but it looks gorgeous. And then you have the little feathers on the tail, and they usually have 3 of those or some kind of end piece that's a little complex. And then you have the legs, and some of the legs can be 2 parts, so you'll have like a round piece for the thigh and then a piece for like the bottom of the foot, and those all need to be positioned correctly. So I really take my time getting these dragons to look right, because you can totally ruin a beautiful plushie by just sewing the legs on all wonky or having the horns be crooked or not in the right place and having them be like in front of the ears instead of behind it or vice versa. So I definitely don't rush my sewing, and they take me a long amount of time. Let's talk about competition. So there were, I want to to say like a dozen vendors at that show, and 3 of us there were crocheters. Even so, I felt like we all made out really well. Yes, of course, I did go around to quote unquote scope out the competition, but it was mainly to just see what we all had and admire their work, because I love crochet. I would never want to copy someone else's inventory or setup, because that's bad for my business and bad for theirs. I feel like the more different you are, the better each individual table will do. So there was one girl who did mostly minis and keychains, and her work was absolutely stunning. The other crocheter had minis as well. Her shop name was Dragon Days, and she had a lot of nice bees and chickens and kind of like those smaller mid-sized plushies. But she also had this beautiful sage green Winnie the Dragon that was done with what looked like big twist plush yarn, like a really thick blanket yarn. So after I saw that there was somebody who just had a whole table full of keychains, I pulled mine, because mine aren't nearly the quality of hers, and I feel like I had other stuff that was stronger items on my table. There were also a local apiary. They had honeybees and they were selling honey. And there's a vendor who made cold pressed juice that was absolutely amazing. So I definitely did some damage at those shops. Sent my wife over to get some honey because she loves honey in her tea, and it was really, really good. Before I get into how much I made, I want to talk briefly about the highlights of my market. One of the things that I had been fearing is that I would run into kind of one of those fellow vendors that people sometimes talk about on social media, whether somebody who tries to spark conflict or speaks negatively about you because they're feeling a little threatened by a competition. And I did not. Everyone was super friendly and super gracious. Pretty much everybody came over to my table at some point, as I did to theirs, and some people even bought a plushie or 2. I was able to network with the other crocheters and follow some of people's social media, and that was really great. Some of my best customers were actually the kids of the vendor and staff, and to be honest, I had never really thought as much as I should have about kids and teens attending these events. So my table ended up being super popular with them. I actually had one 10-year-old who was trying to haggle me down in price on some of my small items. I did figure out later that I think the kids had each been given a certain amount to spend at the tables, but there weren't like any $10 items that were of particular interest to him. So if I could do this again, honestly, I would just cut him a deal on the item he had his eye on. But they ended up finding exactly what they wanted from another crochet vendor, so everybody was happy. My dragons were really popular with the younger crowd. I had one girl come up to me immediately because she saw the lavender Winnie the Dragon peeking down from the top of my display, and I moved it, so she thought it had sold already. So I sold Coco the mint chocolate chip dragon to her almost immediately. So that one went. And then she and her friends kept coming back to my table, socializing and looking at more stuff. She also bought I think the sage green dragon from the other crocheter, and was walking around hugging him and showing him off to her friends. So I'm glad that one found a good forever home. Toward the end of the show, she actually discovered my strawberry dragon. That was the 4th wing dragon pattern by Crochet by Jenna, and I think she fell in love with him. I think that one was hiding at first because I had him right next to my strawberry tiki turtles and this pink squid, so there was a lot of pink in that corner. Next time I will definitely put him somewhere where he stands out. So she kept walking away and then begging her dad for more money and coming back to admire the dragon. So I really felt bad for her, but it also made me happy because I put a lot of love and creative energy into my plushies. And honestly, I feel like that dragon was just stunning. I will definitely be making more fruit-themed dragons. I felt like the strawberry one just had this yum factor on top of the already beautiful detail and great pattern. I may also have a commission coming from another vendor who brought one of my pride bees. They really loved my dragon, so they came back and showed me a drawing of this original character that was like purple and green on its body. I really do hope they reach out because I'm super excited to make that person's original character come to life. So there was another really young girl who fell in love with this hot pink mini snuggler dragon that I freehanded. It was a lot of work. I gave it these little striped rainbow wings, which turned out to be super challenging, but I think she fell in love with it because of that. She's like, "It's a little dragon, it's pink with rainbow wings." I was like, "Oh, yes, that's exactly how I feel about my work." So her mom and dad were like, let's look around. You're gonna want something from every table. So if you like it, we can always come back. But then as they were leaving, they came back and they bought her the pink dragon snuggler. So this is really embarrassing, but I was the last vendor still tearing down because I just had so much stuff. The event staff were super nice and they helped me carry all the heavier things out to my car in their little golf cart. And at the last second, as I'm putting everything away, the dad of the girl who had been sharkling around my table all day came up to me and he handed me his credit card, and guys, he bought the strawberry dragon. I am so happy. Both my dragons were made with so much love, and now they will be loved and find a forever home, so I couldn't have been more thrilled. I did really well for my first market. Even with the rain date and the location, meaning it wasn't super well attended, I felt this event was a big success. So here's the breakdown. I sold one watermelon cheeky turtle for $18, two vitamin C turtles, a blueberry one and a dragon fruit turtle for $25 each, so that's $50, one brown emotional support chicken for $12, one mini octo for $12, a non-binary bee for $12, two emotional support pickles for $10 each, so that was $20, one positive potato for $10, one pride themed chill pill for $10, one rainbow bead stress ball for $15. I feel like that price was a little high, but it was related to the cost of material and the complexity of most of my stress ball buddies, but maybe I might bring that down for future shows. So one dragon snuggler for $40. Again, that one was really based on complexity. I am going to look for a simpler no-sew pattern and maybe rethink how I do the wings. I sold one mint chocolate chip dragon for $95, and one strawberry dragon for $95. I feel like that's a little low on the price spectrum for larger dragon plushies, but the mint chocolate chip one, I was able to really get a good deal on the yarn, and it was my first dragon, so I made sure that that was reflected in the price. And same thing with my strawberry dragon. I actually did really well in terms of the timing for making that. And I feel like I spent kind of way too much time sewing it, but I probably will spend less time sewing future ones, so I adjusted my prices accordingly. So for my first ever craft market, the grand total was $389. I made $43 through Venmo, $52 cash, and $303 Square credit card processing. I spent $8.84 in point of sale fees and for the credit card processing. And I also spent $45 for the booth fee. I did not remit sales tax because I live in the state of Delaware and we do not have sales tax, so that is one less thing I need to worry about. So that brings my total sales, net sales, to $335.16. There goes my baby. I'm gonna go get this baby. Okay guys, I think I lucked out because I think the baby fell back to sleep. So we're gonna keep on filming, and I might get broken up again later if he starts crying. So I was on my grand total, and that was $335.16. I feel like that was a solid figure for my first market. I have definitely seen people do worse, and I've seen people do worse and call it a bust, but I think that definitely is in the range of what I was hoping to make for this trial market. I know some people subtract materials cost or their hourly figure cost of labor into their market sales when displaying this figure. I am not going to do that today because that is literally what I use to calculate the individual prices of my items. So after paying my booth fee, this is pure profit. I've already spent that money, and that was my income for today minus the POS phase. So after reflecting on what sold and didn't sell, I decided to reinvest some of that profit. I went online and I bought another 2-pattern bundle from Red Mills Crochet. She has these beautiful designs for a Luna Moth dragon and a Rosy Maple Moth inspired dragon. And fun fact, I used to be really into entomology, so those are literally 2 of my favorite moths, and I feel like I can put a lot of just love and positive energy into making those dragons, and it'll be something different from what other crocheters are offering at future markets. I feel like these are definitely less viral than Winnie the Dragon, and I know I saw one other Winnie the Dragon at this market, so it'll probably happen again that people have duplicates to choose from, and I want to try to avoid that in the future. I also bought Diddy Dex 2.0, which is a mini dragon plushie. It does have a bit of sewing, but I think I can find ways to incorporate the wings into the body once I've made it, at least once. So hopefully I can make a bunch of dragon eggs for my next market. I've got to hit Michael's and see if they have some of those jumbo Easter eggs on sale. If not, I know where I can get them online, probably for cheap, and put the little baby dragon inside the eggs, because I've heard that's really popular. Once again, I'm going to try to find a modification to make it my own and make it different from what somebody else might be offering. I also found a free pattern for Tank the Dragon. That's a no-sew mini dragon that I think I can make that for around $12 to $15 for the little kids crowd who maybe can't afford a larger dragon plushie. What else am I going to make? I'm definitely going to do more vitamin C turtles. Those are the mini turtles that have a fruit-themed shell, because people really like those. And I have my eye on a pattern for something called Matilda the Sea Turtle, which is this really beautiful, realistic jumbo turtle pattern that falls in probably the middle to high price range for people looking for larger plushies. I want to make Celeste the Dragon again, this dragon here, so I can sell her at market. I'll probably add some more modifications and use like a brighter pink color that stands out more so you can see her kind of from afar. Isn't she beautiful? This is a pattern by Red Mills Crochet. It was bundled in with Winnie the Dragon. It has this beautiful long tail, and I'm like holding multiple things. So it's got this beautiful long swishy feather tail. When I finish her, she'll have some cherry blossoms in the front, and it's just a really gorgeous pattern that I fell in love with. I digress. I'm going to use a brighter pink color that stands out from afar, and I am not selling that one because that belongs to my wife, whose favorite color is purple, and I made it for a birthday present. But she lives up here with my other plushies to keep them all company. Finally, I am going to restock my chill pills and add some regular colored ones that are not pride themed. And of course, I will make more emotional support pickles and positive potatoes because those were a big hit. Takeaways. Number one, plan for weather. I own a 10 by 10 canopy, and I foolishly chose not to bring it because it is super heavy. And literally as I was walking out the door, I was like, maybe I'll bring this. And I tried to lift it. I'm like, nah, nobody got time for that, and walked out the door. As it turned out, many people did have a canopy, and it really does make a difference. So bring your canopy if you have one, even if the event is not advertised as a weather-friendly event. Second, wind. I didn't know what impact wind would have when setting up my table. It was really just a light breeze, not a gust of wind, but every little breath of wind knocked certain things over. I had these foam heads for displaying hats and keepot, which I also did not sell because it's not hat season and there were no Jewish folks at my event. But I had the heads, and they kept, I was chasing them all over the lawn. It was a disaster. So I think I'm gonna craft some type of permanent base for those when I do need to use them. Even if it's just a flat cardboard box with a bag of beans inside to hold it down, I think that will be very helpful. Come to think of it, that could also work for my price tags, which kept blowing off their little wooden stands. So next time I'm either going to glue them into the stand beforehand with hot glue, or have some type of base that actually holds them down that's not going to blow off the table. I really did love the clothespin tags, little clothespin chalkboard tags that are about this big that you can get at the Dollar Tree. Those stayed attached to my larger plushies the entire time, as did pretty much anything that was sewn in or strapped down. I will also be strapping down my shelf, or probably like weighting it with bags of beans zip tied to the bottom so it doesn't move around. I have sandbags for my tent, and I will definitely bring those, and I will probably invest in tent weights as well, just in case we have actual wind. I have definitely heard horror stories from other crafters about their tent or other people's tents blowing over and destroying somebody's display, and I don't want that to happen to me. Number two, 2 fingers too. Use the Wi-Fi. I was setting up, a staff member came up to me and asked if I needed the Wi-Fi password. I said no, and that was not smart, but I was super busy and I was like, oh, I have my mobile phone to access Square and Venmo. But as the day went on, I found myself with a really spotty connection. There was like 1 to 2 bars the entire event. So eventually I did have to flag someone down for the Wi-Fi password. So takeaway is that if someone is offering you to get on their network, get on it right away, because there's probably a reason. Sometimes you may find that there's bad reception in your area, or that it's being blocked by a building or the structure that you're in. So definitely use whatever Wi-Fi is available. You can always turn it off if it's not functioning correctly. Number 3, have 2 people for setup and tear down. So I have to say that I was really glad to be alone while setting up this time, because I was able to focus and make decisions without another person to interact with. My wife did come with the baby around noon and had lunch with us and gave me a little break to use the facilities before we left, before she left, so the baby could go for his nap. That being said, I wished I had a second pair of hands at the very beginning when I was lugging all the stuff in from my car. My spot was the farthest from the unloading zone of all the crafters, and I had so much stuff. I also might have let the venue know to begin with, just so that they can kind of plan their space appropriately. That would have really been nice, and I'm sure that they would have accommodated me if I had asked. So yeah, if she had come earlier and like I'd had help, it would have definitely left me with more time to lay things out and deal with the wind and all the other challenges. I also wished I had her help tearing down, because I was hot and tired. I've been on my feet all day and very sunburned, as you can probably guess and see. I just wanted to curl up and take a nap. So for my next market, we're going to drop off the baby with mom and go in together so we can set things up quickly, and at least just the physical structure. Then she can come back at the end and help me transport all my tables and shelves and bins full of plushies when I'm exhausted from working the whole day and she's still relatively fresh. So if you have a spouse or family member that's supporting you, definitely take them up on any offers to help you with setup and tear down. You will thank yourself later. Number 4, take your time using the POS system. I tested out Square a couple of times just to make sure I could run a credit card before I went, but when I was there, it was definitely a challenge. Don't rush processing credit card payments, especially when using the Square app. Make sure that electronic payments are fully processed until you get that new sale button on your Square POS app, because it is a multi-step process. Otherwise, you could end up losing out on that money. I almost found out the hard way on the last sale of my day. So on 4 separate occasions, I had somebody pay with a card, walk away, and then I looked down at my phone and realized it was prompting me to enter a tip. I was able to close these out manually. Like I said, I just hit no tip because I'm not a tipping venue. I don't know why I had it enabled. But the dad who bought the dragon from me while I was wrapping up actually paid with a credit card while I was connected to their Wi-Fi. So I got to my vehicle after tearing down my booth, packed up all my stuff, get in my car, and I looked down at my phone and realized that I had never navigated to the tip screen before I left the area, and it timed out on me. So all I got was this error message saying cancel payment, and I almost had a heart attack. Fortunately, I just drove around to the center entrance and the guy was still there, and he was super cool about it, and especially since it was my first time selling. So he just, we canceled the payment out and he ran his card again. It was fine. I'm really, really glad I had that experience this time around and not at a busy Pride Festival where somebody might have walked off with a $95 plushie, never to be seen again. So because of this experience, I did some research and I changed the settings within the Square app to make sure that will never happen. I turned off the tip screen, so I'm not collecting tips because I sell plushies. I'm not selling food or otherwise performing a service. So there's no reason for me to collect tips. I also changed the threshold for offline payments to make sure that I'm alerted if a transaction doesn't go through. I might actually, instead of changing the threshold, just disable that feature completely. So if it can't connect, it should tell me that it can't connect. Because I do have the option to send somebody a payment link, and I can probably get a QR code as a backup, but I don't want to be stuck where somebody's gone and I don't have their payment because it didn't go through. I also, for now, do not have receipts enabled because I feel like that's one additional step that could hold up a transaction being closed. But I'm gonna mess around with that one because I don't feel confident I'll lose money over it. I want to mess around with that one until I feel confident that I won't lose money over it. If I don't get it working to my satisfaction, I'll probably invest in just an old-fashioned receipt pad that has carbon paper so people can see me writing up their total and then I don't feel rushed because they can see what I'm doing. Number 5, don't undersell yourself. So one thing I was really confident about going into this market was my prices. I used a pricing tool that I made, inspired by a video by one of my crochet friends, Kristen, whom I'll link down below. I'll link the video that she made down below. And she helps you figure in the cost of materials, labor, any overhead cost associated with selling. And I actually formulated that idea into a spreadsheet that works for me for my business and the items I make and the typical costs that are involved. So labor is a huge part of the price of your plushies. So to me, it's important to time yourself accurately, see what's the average time you spent making something over and over, and pay yourself accordingly. I also added an upcharge for any items where I shelled out more than $6 over a pattern or design. This is not a big deal for minis that I make over and over, but if, for example, I wanted to make the cuddly Loch Ness Monster Nessie, that pattern's $20, and it's unlikely I'd be making it more than once or twice. That being said, this has already been a long video. Thank you for those who are tuning in to the end. I'm going to link my resources down below, including my socials. I will see you folks in the next video. I hope that you got something out of this and were able to get some advice that might help you for a future market. I certainly did, and my one final takeaway from this experience is test everything. If you have the opportunity to participate in a smaller, slower market that has a lower upfront cost going in, definitely do that because it'll give you the chance to figure out, all your systems and your setup and just how you run a sale in a less threatening environment. I hope that your first experiences are as rewarding as mine and that you go forth and stay fabulous and creative and make lots of stuff that people will enjoy, that will be loved and find a forever home. So thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a fabulous day, everybody. Bye.